Hi folks, Lou here, and I'm going to answer a question that a friend asked me. What would be a good practice war game for a 6-year-old? So what are we doing? We're trying to figure out what kind of game or what game a 6-year-old might be able to play reasonably and intelligently. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with people that age, though I do have a very smart dog, but he can't talk. So to some extent, this is speculation. I'm assuming someone may be old enough to be able to read simple things and maybe able to do simple arithmetic, but it would be better if we avoided those needs because 6-year-olds are right on the cusp there. Now, how do you simplify games? You have few rules. You have few or no exceptions to the rules. You want to have fewer decisions at each action that the player takes, and fewer choices for each of those decisions. You also want to be careful with hidden information because people that young might forget about it or be easily confused by the hidden information or the fact that it's not right there where they can see it. And also, of course, I prefer to use commercial games rather than invent something from scratch. Why spend a lot of time on a from scratch game that might not work out? We're also looking for transparency, not gameplay depth. That is, the game should be easy to see what you have to do to succeed after you've played it for a while or maybe played it once. Games with good gameplay depth, you may have to play it a dozen times before you really see most everything that you need to see to understand how to play well. And of course, 6-year-olds are not going to be good at military strategy. Most adults aren't. So you have to keep it transparent and simple. What about randomness? Some of you will remember playing Candyland at a very young age, not realizing it was entirely random. And then you get older and you figure that out. But randomness gives a child a better chance to win a game when playing with an adult. For example, in chess, if you roll the dice anytime there is a fight, add 1 or 2 to the attacker's die roll and then roll a different sized die for different pieces. For example, for a pawn, you'd roll a d4, 4-sided die. Bishop and knight, a d6 or d8. Rook, a d8 or d10. Queen, a d12 or even a d20. The king will still be subject to checkmate without dice roll, and ties either re-roll or go to the attacker. Well, that's going to change things, and it's going to enable a younger person to succeed when they get lucky. They may not need help to succeed, but it would certainly help. Now, my wife says I shouldn't underestimate what some 6-year-olds can do. So checkers and chess are under consideration. Checkers is a straightforward game with very few rules, but lots of depth. A gentleman named Marion Tinsley was the world checkers champion for many, many years. You can look him up in Wikipedia. And he only lost something like 5 or 7 games that entire long period. He had just about solved checkers. Nobody has solved chess. Chess is much more complicated. Now, one of the problems with chess is there are different moves for different pieces, and that might make the game more difficult to play for a 6-year-old. I have seen practice sets or training sets that use flat pieces, and on each flat piece there's a diagram that shows what the move of the piece is. Still, the game is fundamentally complicated. I suggest if you want to try chess, try Chess 960, called Fisher Random Chess, where you scramble the back row of pieces identically on both sides. There's 960 combinations of that, which is why it's called Chess 960. So that does away with much of the great literature of study and all the openings and so on. It's not in play anymore because you've got to figure it out as you play the game. Now, an old game that I immediately thought of when I was asked this question was American Heritage Broadsides. This is a game from my youth, and I'm 73, so a long time ago. It involves a little hidden information and a lot of maneuver, but no numbers. One side is the attacker, the other is defending a ship-filled harbor with gun batteries and hazards. And written underneath the plastic gun battery or hazard piece, it shows that either it's harmless or that it causes damage or destroys a challenging ship. Aside from that, once the attackers get into the harbor, you're moving one ship at a time along a straight line, just orthogonally, not diagonally, and you're attempting to cross the T of enemy ships. In other words, come up at their bow with your broadside or at their stern with your broadside, and you fire and you knock down one of their masts. Or if you come up beside the other ship, you both lose a mast. And they're actually little cool toy ships that can have holes for 1 to 3 masts. So as you fight, ships lose masts, and when they lose all their masts, they sink, and that helps determine who wins. So it has the toy factor, which is probably pretty important for a 6-year-old. I probably haven't emphasized enough how important 3D pieces might be to a 6-year-old. Now, my friend who asked the question in the first place posed it to ChatGPT, the online AI, and his experiences with the program have yielded some remarkable results before. And in this case, I don't remember whether he suggested Stratego or the program did, but a cut down version of Stratego was recommended, complete with a list of pieces and a detailed story to make it more interesting to a child. That's the part that impressed me. And of course, the story probably exists somewhere in its data and it just pulled it out, but nonetheless, it was impressive. Now, Stratego is a good choice if you retain the crowded nature of the board, which limits the number of decisions and choices. This is in contrast to my own video game, Doomstar, and other unpublished Stratego-like games that I've designed that are much more fluid. When people play those, people who think they are dynamite Stratego players sometimes almost freeze up because there's too much going on, too much fluidity. So you want to reduce that, not have that fluidity. Excuse me. Jumbo, the European publisher originator of Stratego, publishes a cut down version of Stratego, but I've never seen it in the USA. It may be called Junior Stratego. In this case, I'd suggest an 8 wide by 6 deep board might be sufficient. 8 by 6 with no more than 16 pieces. A flag, 3 bombs, 3 miners, 3 scouts, 1 spy and 1 field marshal, the strongest piece that can be taken by an attacking spy, but not a defending spy. 2 pieces of intermediate strength and 2 pieces weaker than those, but stronger than the miners. I'm not using numbers here because sometimes Stratego has the strongest pieces at 1, and sometimes it has the strongest pieces at 10. So it depends on what kind of Stratego set you've got. Now I would put lakes on the board to divide into 3 sectors, just like the original board. Do the middle 2 of 6 rows like this. So you have 2 open spaces, a lake, 2 open spaces, a lake, and 2 open spaces across the 8. And you do that for both of the rows that are between the 2 players. So each player has 2 rows to set up their pieces in, and they fill up the rows, and there's 2 rows in the middle with these lakes. But I haven't tried this. I don't know how it will work, but it would be worth a try. So keep it simple and easy to see. the transparency. Few rules, few exceptions, little or no hidden info. Thanks for listening.